Have you ever felt like this?
Stomach cramps, heart palpitations, feels like your heart's going to explode, it's pounding so hard. It can sometimes feel like somebody's like beating a drum, like really, really loud and hard. I can't. I was breathing faster and faster and faster to try to get more oxygen, but it was making it worse.
You're not alone. Mental health has physical symptoms too, and when you don't know what's going on, it can be really scary.
Going for pain relief regularly, going to the hospitals to different consultants regularly, having lots of tests regularly, having lots of scans regularly.
Sound familiar?
This is their life, and it's a sort of downward spiral for people.
It can feel like your arms and legs are really heavy, and mist comes over my eyes. You feel a bit dizzy and you feel faint. That's really scary.
Tests, scans, consultations, they can all show up nothing when actually you're unwell.
It's not uncommon, is it, for people to have something wrong and then just never figure out why
it's not.
Why
it's
that's
a very
happening.
common occurrence. 1 in 5 GP appointments.
Whoa, 1 in 5?
1 in 5.
Yep. 1 in 5 people go to their GP with a physical symptom, but then nothing shows up on tests.
I've got a tremor in my hands. You see that?
Yeah.
In this episode of Like Minds, we're taking a look at how some physical pains and symptoms in our bodies can be linked to mental illness and what you can do. First up though, we want to know what you've experienced.
Yeah, very, very severe stomach cramps. I had a lot of bowel problems as well.
I was experiencing an incredibly tight chest and shortness of breath, and it just wasn't fading.
A loss of appetite, an inability to have a full night's sleep,
I get very bad muscle aches and pains,
profuse sweating.
and was just kind of told to take ibuprofen and hope that it kind of gets better.
It wasn't until I was outside of the hospital and I was reading my discharge letter that I'd seen that they had diagnosed me with a panic attack.
If you feel like it, you can share your experiences in the comments below. In the meantime, here's some advice.
People who have these symptoms start doubting it themselves. Are they going crazy? Because they keep getting these negative, no, there's nothing wrong with you, and yet they've got bodily experience, but they're not. It's true and it's real, and they need to be believed.
This is Helen Payne. She's a professor at the University of Hertfordshire.
They become depressed. They're living, feeling terrified that there's something awful wrong with them, but they just haven't found out what it is yet. And they're living with the unknown, which is really difficult.
Helen runs the body-mind approach, which supports people with unexplained symptoms by helping them manage the pain
And
first.
just letting go of any tension.
What is the body-mind approach?
So it's a way of working with people with different unexplained symptoms. So where is the distress? What does it feel like? What's the sensory experience in the body? And actually working from the body to the mind instead of from a mental or cognitive approach, to help them learn different strategies that are tailor-made to them to manage their distressing symptom, so it's not so distressing day to day. That's the sort of thing.
That's lovely.
And then you go right the way down through the legs to the toes, and then people feel so open at the end.
Okay, let's just do my toes quickly because they feel tense.
What does it feel like in your body? Take some clay, and I'd like you to model something emanating from that.
Good getting your hands in that, isn't it?
Yeah. Quite defensive. A hedgehog puts those prickles out to defend itself. What would the sound be?
That's the noise.
So I wonder what that need to protect is about for you.
I think it's for a full session. Not for Andy in the room.
Of course, it's really important to say that not all unexplained aches and pains are linked to mental health.
There's lots and lots of reasons why people have unexplained symptoms. And the problem with saying it's mental health is that people don't want to be aligned with the mental health label. The stigma of mental health, although it's a lot better, is still there.
I've been to the doctor so many times over the years when I was a teenager. I think it's interesting that it wasn't picked up then.
Claire lives in Bolton. She was diagnosed with social anxiety 6 years ago, but had never realised that was what was behind a whole host of physical symptoms.
Because I was always in the doctors, particularly with my stomach at the time. I went saying I can't go in and say, excuse me, I can't stop blushing. So I'm like, what else is there? I feel sick all the time. I remember them asking me if I was pregnant a lot. I went for the tremors at one point, but everything was puberty. I remember that. It's just puberty.
When tests show up as negative, it is incredibly easy for people like Claire to get caught up in appointments, tests, and disappointment. I know this because it happened to me. When I was 20, I went through this bit where it felt like my heart was floating in a bag of water and being jumbled around. It felt weird and frightening. The doctor sent me for an ECG or electrocardiogram test. They stuck some cold electrodes on me and I lay back and waited. But the tests came back normal, which was confusing and left me in the dark. There was nothing wrong with my heart.
I actually felt disappointed.
Yes, because even though it's good news, it's not good news.
Yeah, it's not good news.
It's
and
not.
I feel really embarrassed saying that.
No, you're absolutely right. The good news is not good news.
Yeah.
And so then people feel, oh no, it's not that. So I still don't know what's wrong with me. And then they feel more out of control.
Obviously, people can feel quite alone with this. How lonely do people feel?
Well, on a scale to 1 to 10, I would say 10 by the time they've lost family and friends support because they've had the symptom for so long and they talk about it all the time. And obviously, if you're living with the unknown and keep going to the GP and keep going for tests and scans and everything comes back negative, you're going to start feeling a bit low about that. Often you can't tell whether the anxiety depression started first and then the symptom came, or the symptom and then the anxiety depression came. You don't know which came first. I've had some people reporting that they felt on the edge of suicide. The need is overwhelming to provide them with some kind of hope. And so self-management bridges the gap between the NHS reduction in resources and patient high need.
So here are a few kind of easy tips from Helen on how to start trying to manage unexplained symptoms in your body.
Use the soft part and just massage it with your other hand. Just let the energy fall down through your fingers and breathe out through the other one. Singing! What are we going to sing?
Singing! If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
Claire struggled with her symptoms like blushing and stomachache without knowing the cause. That was until she had a panic attack just before a job interview.
I think 24 years of ignoring something, it's eventually going to get out. It physically exploded from my consciousness. Managed to get an appointment and just poured into the office. I was like, this is what's happening. And just like, yeah, it's social anxiety, and that was a panic attack.
And how did that feel?
I burst into tears, mainly of kind of relief and confusion and all kinds of stuff, because I think all of that stuff I'd been repressing for so long. I was like, what? It can't be that simple. It just can't be. No one can feel this bad and it be that simple.
If you think something you're experiencing might be related to your mental health or stress, do speak to your GP. And whilst we can't take the pain away for you, we hope we can leave you feeling a little less alone.
I initially was just offered talking therapies, which obviously have been very, very helpful. And I was offered antidepressants and beta blockers.
It's important to realise that everyone is individual. No two people will experience anxiety in exactly the same way, so listen to what that person needs.
And now that I have my own diagnosis, I can kind of know what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it and what's going on in my head.
In many ways, that diagnosis liberated me and allowed me to go out and tell people what was wrong with me.
And did it help having that diagnosis then?
Oh, God, yes. I think giving anything a name makes it more real and less like it's not all in your head.
Well, it was something.